and welcome back to this channel. This is That So with Silantoe, where the aim of this channel is really just to talk about government and understand our role in improving the governance in our country, and through this we can create a politically empowered generation. So today we have a guest in our first episode of Meet the Candidate series, and our first guest is Jimi Wanjigi. You guys may know Jimi. He's the presidential candidate of Safina Party, not ODM. And he's also the CEO of Kwacha Group of Companies. Welcome, Jimi.
Thank you, Susan.
You are our first guest.
Karibu, I'm very honored. Very honored.
Yeah.
Karibu sana.
So really, I think we just wanted to have a discussion with you, just know who are you. We've had like a lot of things about you, but we just really want to hear from you. And so that a lot of people on this channel are young people who are, trying to vote in the next election, and they're looking for a presidential candidate to vote for. So hopefully through this conversation, we'll hear a little bit more about you, and if you convince them, maybe they will vote for you. So the honors is on you.
Thank you,
So like we just want to start on a light note. If anyone looks at your website, they see you're a father and you're a husband, hopefully to one wife. So I don't know, maybe you can tell us where did you meet your wife?
Yes.
And how long have you been married? And how many kids do you have?
That's a good question.
Mm-hmm.
I now understand why your show is called Is That So? I met my wife 25 years ago, got married 25 years ago. And we're having our anniversary, I think, this month.
Oh,
In
happy
the next few
anniversary.
days. Thank you very much.
25th anniversary?
25th anniversary.
Nice.
So we've been together a long time.
Okay.
I met her at a birthday party.
A birthday party?
A surprise birthday party of a friend of ours.
Okay.
And the minute I saw her,
Mm-hmm.
I knew she was my wife.
Really?
Really.
Okay.
I actually saw her. She came in with her sister, and I knew she is my wife.
So that's a real thing. Like,
It's
guys,
a real thing. It
Okay.
actually happens.
Okay.
And we didn't even talk. We just smiled at each other, and she walked up, and I said, "That's my wife." So I told my friend, "I have to meet her. I have to meet her," which I did a few days later, and we both knew it.
Interesting.
6 months later, we were engaged. A year later, we were married.
6 months?
Yeah.
A year?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
The only challenge is this is not a relationship podcast, but we would have gone more into it. But that's very interesting. And how many
Yeah.
kids do you have?
2 kids.
Okay.
Minor and one boy.
Okay.
One is 22, the other is 18.
Okay.
19 actually, now she's getting to. And I do have one wife. I don't have 2 or 3 or 4.
Thanks for clarifying. So when you're president, you don't have to do the Kibaki speech of I have only one wife.
And I don't know of any other kids that I have other than those 2 kids.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good for you. Good for you. All right, so we'll just dial back into politics now. So you're vying for president, yes? But let's just go back. Like, when did you actually join politics? I know the first time we ever heard about you was probably in about 2016, 2017. And it came out that you're this financier of campaigns. So before we even get to you financing campaigns, like, when did you even get into politics?
The history of politics.
Okay.
My father was in politics.
Okay.
He was the first MP. He was an MP of Kamkunji constituency.
Yeah.
1969, after Tomboya was killed. If you know Tomboya, young people don't really know. So Tomboya was killed, and he became the next MP there. So he was in politics for about 25 to 30 years. So we grew up in politics. That's what we knew.
Okay.
But I can tell you the first real active part was when I came back from school. That was
Where
the
did you go to
advent-
school?
Canada.
Okay.
That was the advent of multi-parties.
Mm-hmm.
And I can tell you, you've never seen such a boiling pot. It was a very exciting time.
Mm-hmm.
You had what you called a dictatorship. You had one party. You could not vote for any other party, right? You couldn't be in any other party. You had a constitution that said you couldn't even imagine the president not being the president. That was a treasonable offense.
Yeah.
And there's a great man called Uncle Ken Matiba. Matiba, I've known ever since I was very little. And Uncle Ken had this thing for Jimmy. He thought I gave him luck if I stood around. So I found the heat of multipartism at its peak. He was being followed everywhere. He was under pressure because he had stood up with Charles Rubia and Jaramogi and eventually Raila to say that the section of the Constitution called 2A must be removed to allow for multi-parties. And that caused mayhem in terms of the political arena. Moi was intolerant and draconian in his ways of dealing with it. So people were being arrested, people were being detained. Matiba was eventually detained. In fact, I think 4 days before he was, we had just had breakfast at Lillian Towers, and a group of special branch. Those days we didn't have mobile phones. So special branch uses NIS now.
Yeah.
Used to follow you with line of sight. They had to see you. So they would come around you, and they were extremely visible.
Interesting.
So he got arrested 4 days later from that breakfast. Was detained for a couple of months. He got a stroke. The next time I saw him in Nairobi Hospital, he didn't even know who I was.
Interesting.
The stroke had done that damage. So you imagine in that revolutionary spirit, that was my inculcation. My father was also harassed for standing up for his constituents in a place called Moroto, Kamkunji. You had then a group of young Turks led by Moita, who is my party leader in Safina.
I see.
You had Orengo, you had Raila Odinga. You had all these people that ended up creating what was called FORD, Forum for the Restoration of Democracy, being harassed all over town, okay, and being detained. So that was my introduction. And you imagine we were at the forefront of this,
so
getting advice from all these people, seeing a revolutionary spirit that actually got very inculcated in me. I think in our family we have it, because my grandfather was known to have been part of Mau Mau.
I see.
So I think it's in our family. My father was also a man who stood up to authority, against authority. He did with Moi. He had even during Kenyatta's time, and called after J.M. Kariuki had been killed, the inner circle that you now call the deep state. At that time it was called the inner circle.
Okay.
That was surrounding Jomo Kenyatta as a people that are bringing down the country with the political assassinations. So you can imagine that is my spirit.
The background.
I'm revolutionary.
Yeah. So like your first instance of actually getting into politics was that period. So plugging into that revolution for the second liberation, yes. Okay. So then how did it grow from that to you being the guy who finances campaigns? Like it's a bit, there's like a black spot there that we are not very sure about.
Well, financing campaigns is only a part of politics.
Okay. But it means you're deep inside it, right?
Yes, I have been. I have been deep inside since that time.
So tell us that process.
The progression went on further. Because after the 92 elections, James Orengo came to me, and I started funding. That was my first funding. So imagine at that young age, I was able to have done some wheeling and dealing in this good town of ours. We had done...
Doing what?
I was, all sorts of things.
Like what? Name just one thing.
The unfortunate thing. I'll tell you, I started a company called Bins Limited.
Okay.
Yeah?
Okay.
Bins Limited was to collect garbage. Right? We broke the barrier. Before, only the city council, which is now the county of Nairobi, could collect garbage from your house. And they said that they provided you with a bin. That was their receptacle. And on your water bill, you paid for those services 40 shillings a month.
Yeah.
So I convinced them that they could not collect garbage. It was all over. I mean, town was littered. This town was littered with garbage. So I convinced them that I am going to offer a complimentary service.
Yeah. Right? You know why I'm like, it's because, so how did you get into this space where you can convince the city council people? Like at that point where you'd been involved with the multipartyism movement, but you're coming again to the same government that you're fighting to be like, hey guys, can I help you collect garbage?
It's why, if you have an idea, you know, I don't know why you see barriers. Unfortunately, a lot of people see barriers. They don't see opportunities.
Okay. But
I don't see barriers.
Okay. I think we're digressing first of all. Let's hear your journey in politics, and then we'll come back to the money issue. But no yes, okay. So go back. Now you are in this movement.
So we started a movement called Mageuzi. Mageuzi was primarily to bring changes further to the Constitution of Kenya.
Okay.
What had happened in the 92 election was that it was the advent of multipartyism. So a section of the Constitution called 2A that barred any multi-party elections was removed. We said there were other reforms that needed to happen.
Yeah.
So we helped fund Mageuzi. Mageuzi led to what was called IPPG as a political settlement.
Jimmy, you're funding these people even at that time.
Activity, but activities was not much.
Okay.
It was not that much.
Okay.
It was a few demonstrations in Nairobi. Make sure we have some pills for people so they don't get sick when they get tear gas.
Okay.
Right? It was public awareness.
Okay.
In those days, demonstrations were a very big thing because nobody had the courage to do them.
Yeah. Okay.
And the police were vicious, very violent on us. But we took to the streets. We went on those streets.
Okay.
James Orango was a great mobilizer. But you imagine we had branches all over the country, even a Kakamega branch that was headed by Boni Halwale, just to show you how diverse and how people entered politics. Now, after Mageuzi gave birth to something called IPPG, which was a settlement, primarily pushed by our foreign donors, where they put Mageuzi and the government of Kenya together. And that was significant because the agreement of that was that Moi could not stand again after the 97 election. And that was a very big win. Very, very big win. So you can see we progressively have been part of revolutions that have made different milestone decisions in the country. Okay. You must remember, please, that constitution never envisaged a president leaving office.
After 2 terms.
That was a very big thing. There was no 2 terms.
Yeah. This came with the, yes.
Before that, there was no 2 terms.
Yeah.
So you can imagine how big a milestone it was.
Yeah.
It changed the country. Changed the country. In 2002, I was part of the wing that brought Kibaki. I was in LDP. That was a formation with George Saitoti, Raila Amolo Odinga. You had Moody Awori, you had Kalonzo Musyoka. That formation of LDP, we had started all the way back in 2001. We had good friends in NAC, primarily Charity Ngilu and Wamalwa and Kibaki. So we participated as much as we could to help them form NAC. We saw the moves that Moi was making and eventually ended up creating a rainbow coalition. If you recall, I don't know whether you know enough history.
Of course I do.
Okay.
Yeah.
In 2002, there's a famous tea that Saitoti, Raila Odinga, and Kamodho had at Norfolk. And the press conference of that was that we're starting a rainbow coalition. I was right there.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
So it tells you
you've been part of this thing for a while. Okay. Interesting.
Yeah, that's 2002. Right? Now, in the Kibaki government, we believed it was a very progressive government.
Yeah.
Extremely progressive. The world opened up in this country.
Yeah.
Right? Opportunities galore. Even media like this, which could not be there before, now started getting buzz. Right? Mobile phones. We forget many things. But mobile phones really took their root at that time.
That's true.
Yeah. So, there was a hope of opening up of media space, of economic space, business opportunities. Kibaki was a fantastic economic leader.
What was your role in his government?
That's a good question. Let me say this, that I had 2 primary roles. I was not an official of the government.
Okay.
But it's a government I supported heavily. So I was part and parcel of people who used to think tank about political direction and economic direction. And I believe it was a very progressive period. The greatest thing about President Kibaki, he looked at a country with a very broad mind. He had no pettiness. Okay. He saw big picture.
Yeah.
And he's the kind of man who you went to, and all he wanted to know was which is these barriers that are stopping any growth. Yeah. I removed them. Okay. He was not part of blocking anybody. Yes. It was, those are barriers. Okay, why don't we remove them? Yeah. Just to give you an example, he was so progressive. That's how we have M-Pesa. Oh, interesting. If he had agreed to the advice he got from the central banks of this world,
we would not have
the banks who were saying that Safaricom is receiving deposits, so they should have a banking license. Yeah. You'd never have had M-Pesa. Okay. To him it was, no, but this means money moves very quickly between people. That's great for the economy. Yeah. Which are the barriers I need to remove to allow them to operate? So it showed you just how progressive he was.
Okay. So you were like a think tank kind of guy who helped think through direction that the country could take economically at the time of Kibaki.
Yes.
So that progressed into the coalition government as well after 2007.
Yes.
Okay, so then
Yes.
then we get to 2013,
Yes.
and then you were behind Uhuru Ruto.
Yes. I have a story with them.
Okay.
A very deep story.
Okay.
First
Do you
and
want to
foremost-
tell us about
Yes.
that?
First and
Okay.
foremost, the two of them
Hmm.
asked me to help
Okay.
all the way back in 2009, 2010. The advent of their being announced in
The
as
ICC.
suspects in the ICC.
Mm.
So they came to me. So they must have seen capacity in me to assist them to overcome a major challenge
Mm.
that they had in their personal lives.
Why did they come to you? Did they tell you why they came to you?
Well, I'm known as that man.
Why are you known as this man?
I'm known as that man. Maybe I have great ideas. Not
Okay.
even maybe I have great ideas. I have
Okay.
a great strategic mind.
Okay.
That I believe that's why they came to me, because it's not that they needed money,
Mm.
contrary to what
They needed ideas.
they needed a strategy.
About
Develop
how
a
to.
strategy as to how to overcome a major challenge they had in their lives.
Mm.
But on top of that,
Mm.
I think it was a major situation for this country.
Okay.
We're talking about peace, and these were two warring communities that had come so fresh in 2007 to an event a horrific event we had never imagined in this country. 1,400 people lost their lives. We've never seen that.
Yeah.
We had clashes before, but this was just unbelievable proportions. And you must understand what it takes to bring people who are spirit blood together.
Yeah.
Come to the table. Communities. It was massive.
Okay.
The feelings were very entrenched.
Yeah.
And that is why we participate, for the more, not necessarily for them, but for the country.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
You see, even as a businessman, you can't thrive when there's no peace.
That's true.
I'm not that kind of businessman that thrives when there's no peace.
Okay.
You thrive better when there's peace. Your market is bigger, it's more progressive, people are,
There's
people
more
are advancing.
investment.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
Okay.
So that's where I exist. So this was very important. The second is that we had a generational change.
Okay.
We're now moving from our father's generation to ourselves,
To you guys.
to my generation.
Okay.
Yeah, Susan, I know where.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's difficult, but so.
Yeah. So we're moving from one generation to another, and that was very important.
Okay.
Because then you're bringing about new thinking,
Yeah.
fresh thinking, and open-mindedness that had not been there.
Okay.
Right? Kibaki had started a journey and it's handed over to his, more or less like his sons.
Okay.
And that's how we came up with this great clarion call of analog and digital. I don't know whether you remember it.
Oh yes,
Said we are doing away with analog,
that
this
was
is now
actually
digital generation.
the first election that I voted
That
in.
you voted.
Yeah.
I hope we identified you as digital. You identified with digital.
Us guys were the outliers. We voted for whoever else was there. but so the role that you're playing in that particular campaign and then eventually in that government was also the same role you're playing in the Kibaki one, like a think tank kind of thing. You helped them overcome this thing that they were going through at a personal level, which by the way was also a national problem. It was a national problem. It wasn't just a personal thing. So what role were you playing other than helping them think through it? People always say, oh, you are CG given, I don't know what tenders, and then these tenders didn't work. Is that true?
No, people like to simplify things.
Okay.
We're in this. We actually love our country.
Okay.
I think people should not misunderstand us. We are not doing all this for personal benefit. We only thrive when the rest of the country is
thriving.
also thriving.
Yeah, that's true.
So we actually look at the country,
Okay.
not tenders.
Okay, but Jimmy,
people like to belittle these things. I can assure you, and I'm very clear about this.
Okay.
I did so, as I said, because it was for the nation.
Okay.
Right? And my only request to my two friends was, if the country saves you, we must save the nation.
Okay.
That was it. Right? Along the way, we disagreed. In fact, it didn't even take a year.
What did you disagree about?
Because it was no longer about saving the nation. It was still about themselves.
In what
So
way?
I took, you have an economy.
Uh-huh.
And the decisions you make in an economy, the government is the biggest decision maker in an economy.
Okay.
And you must understand that government is all that we live. You know, I think young people don't understand it.
You should tell them.
And it really is quite disturbing.
Okay.
I believe that the biggest and the worst form of illiteracy is political illiteracy.
Okay. That's true, actually. And that's even why we have this channel. So that, like, at least we can get to know a little bit more
People do not
about
understand that everything they live is siyasa.
Yes. But
Everything.
Jimmy, wait, we are still talking about these people.
Yes.
So why did you mlikosania wapi? Like, what is the problem?
See what happens when you start making decisions on an economy that is going to affect all of us in time. When you start making bad decisions that are going to ruin our lives, then we have a parting of ways.
Okay.
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 I'll give you a good example.
Yes, give me an example.
I was very annoyed about SGR. SGR was a project some of us had begun during Pakistan.
Yeah.
Right? And by the climax of it, we had a project on the table with the same China Road and Bridge Company that could have been done privately.
Okay.
Right?
In what way?
This government
Explain what privately means.
Privately means this.
Yeah.
A PPP.
Okay.
Public-private partnership. So all we wanted from Kenya Railways was the following.
Yeah.
We'll do an SGR from Mombasa to Malaba. Okay?
Yeah.
1,000 kilometers. Right? All we want to do is take your way leave because the land is there.
Yeah.
Where the rail passes. So on that, we can cost it, and that is your shareholding in this enterprise. Right?
Yes.
And we'll pay you even rent every month if you want. We want to now expand the rail, right, and put our wagons. In fact, our wagons, we're actually going to farm out to those people who actually move goods and services.
Yeah.
Most of the goods, because goods is where there's money, is, you know, maize, palm oil, the fuel oil, things like that. So there are not very many players.
Okay.
And they were willing to bring the rolling stock.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
So a partnership is PPP, okay, where government does not put in any money.
So it's all privately funded.
It's all privately funded.
But then the public will come and pay back this money because it's being used by the public.
Yes.
Yeah.
But the public does not fund it.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
But the public
only
pays
pays
for the
to
services,
use it.
but
Okay.
it must be competitive.
Okay.
Otherwise, they will choose alternatives in road.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, that's true.
So that is what we did. Now we had a costing of 55 billion.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Now this government decided to turn it into a government project. Right? It became from Mombasa to Nairobi 380 billion. Now, and that they're saying publicly funded debt, no return. I could not see a return. All I could see were problems for Kenyans for the years to come. And I think I've been vindicated. I've been vindicated.
Okay, that's
that rail
true.
Today, right?
It doesn't make money, it's making losses, and we're not able to pay back the debt properly.
Every single day just moving.
Yeah. So that was one of the reasons. It was about debt, the debt that was being accumulated.
Of non-productive debt.
Okay. So
now,
this all happened in the first term.
And it's important you understand how this is done.
Okay,
what happens is this. You have a pot called Kenya. You have so much money, right?
Yeah.
Okay, that we collect in revenue. Okay?
Yeah.
Then you say, what is this pot supposed to do? Right? So during Kibaki's time, let's say for every 100 shillings we raised, right? Kenya revenue got.
Yeah.
Right? 18 shillings was going to debt. Right? So you had now something like what? 72?
Yeah.
Going towards 82
other things.
Rather,
yeah.
Going towards other things. So you could pay salaries, you could pay for operations, OPEX, right? So police vehicles have got petrol. You could pay for some capital expenditure.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You could do certain things with that 100 shillings. Now, we have reached a stage where 75 shillings of every 100 is going to debt. So you have squeezed out
what we can do, the money that can be used for other things.
You need 30 shillings for the counties.
Yeah.
You're already in debt. You need another 50 shillings for salaries. You're further in debt, 55. You need 30 shillings for petrol for police. You're 85 shillings in debt. You're borrowing that money from the local market. So you and I are crowded out in
we
banks.
Can't borrow from banks.
Can't borrow from banks.
Okay.
So these are decisions one makes, and it's not productive.
Yeah.
But why is it being made?
Yeah.
Why is it being made? What is the motive of taking non-productive debt?
Selfish
It's so that
reason.
our children and our children's children keep paying for somebody who's putting money in their pocket.
Yeah.
For
Okay.
years to come. In other words, the pot is not enough.
Okay.
Increase it so that
we make more
our
money.
cut and take off.
So that was one of the reasons why you disagreed with the Uhuru and Ruto in the past.
101 policy. That was one.
Okay.
It was basically about running the economy.
Yeah.
I also was not happy with the belligerent politics.
Okay.
I did not believe, after all that had been achieved, that the stand was to fight the opposition in a belligerent manner.
Okay, what is belligerent?
Belligerent in
a simple language.
In a non-tolerant manner.
Okay.
What had happened after that election?
Yeah.
And you remember that election went right up to Supreme Court.
Yeah.
Where you had Raila Odinga taking the contest to Supreme Court. He lost. Right?
Yeah.
In my house, I had Raila Odinga and President Uhuru Kenyatta. Well, we agreed that now there'll be an understanding of how the opposition operates, how government operates.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because we must talk about the progressive nature of the nation.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
All those promises were broken.
So
now it was
Mabishano. We were fighting. Okay.
Mabishano.
So okay. So then you guys didn't agree. But 2017 you came back to support Raila, which is fine. I think I've seen you've talked about this quite a bit, that he's a progressive guy. You've also talked about how during the multi-party time, you guys were actually fighting for the same thing. And that's probably why you ended up supporting him in 2017. But now we're in 2022, and you're against all of these people. You're not supporting either Uhuru and Raila, who seem to be together, and you're not supporting Ruto as well. I don't know. You've not told us whether you're not supporting him, but you're vying for president by yourself.
Your first question is, why am I not supporting
either of those? Yes.
Because there's different times for different situations. Kenya is now 60 years since birth. And I am a strong believer of history, that there are periods in history that define the politics. And it's called a generation. The generation, based mainly on pop culture, is known as 30 years.
Okay.
Do you know why?
Why?
Because that's normally the time music changes to a different grouping.
I see.
Yeah. After 30 years, there's different music that comes in that changes the direction.
It becomes a whole other thing.
Yeah, it becomes a whole other thing because younger people consume different music.
Yeah, they do. They do.
I have to relate now to Genge. Okay.
Do you relate?
Actually, I do. Yeah. Okay. Some of it is really good.
Okay.
Really good,
What's your favorite song of this?
That's
of
a
this
good question.
ones?
I like a group. I like Major, by the way.
Okay.
I really like Major. He's really very good. There's a group I really support in Naivasha called Naivasha's Finest.
Okay.
That are very creative.
Interesting.
They just sell some mitumba, and it's a very young group, but very progressive.
I see.
So you know, I at first it was shocking. I didn't
like, what the hell is this?
I didn't understand it. But slowly I'm
You're getting into it. Okay.
So 30 years is called in pop culture the generational change. Right? That's why it has been earmarked. A generation is 30 years. Okay?
Okay.
So you imagine when you're 1, you're 30, you cannot, you can't relate to people who are mature.
Yeah, okay.
Now, we have had 2 periods. We had the independence revolution in the advent of multi-party, of Kenya. That was independence.
Yeah.
And there are reasons why we got independence. One was, of course, our local fight. The second was what was happening internationally, because we had been colonized.
Yeah.
And all our events tie in with what is happening internationally. So at the advent of independence, we had our local fight called Mau Mau and our struggle for African nations. But even those that did not have fights, remember, got the independence around the same period.
Yeah.
It came in the advent of the beginning of the Cold War. Okay?
That's true.
Russia had now become a power, and the West, who are our biggest colonizers here, were afraid of Russia liberating us.
Yeah.
So they decided to free us and hold onto our country so that Russia does not come in.
Yeah.
And Russia got into a few countries. But they were afraid of the form of governance. One was communism, one was free markets, capitalism. The end of 30 years, the advent of now multi-partyism, was a period that coincided again with what was happening abroad. It was the end of the Cold War. The end of the Cold War, now the Westerners looked at us and they said, hey, there are too many tin-horn dictators, right? And these tin-horn dictators not only have made money, have done well, they're controlling their countries. Now we need them to also not focus on us too much. Bring democracy. The greatest thing about democracy is that it makes us look at each other, not other people.
Yeah, that's
Alright?
true. That's
so
true.
we were made to look at each other,
Mm.
freed up democracy, so-called multipartism.
Yeah.
That was now the advent of the next period. As far as I'm concerned and history is concerned, a lot of that climax in the 2010 Constitution.
True.
Okay? So now we have done our 30 years. We are now in a different revolution.
Mm-hmm.
Again, it's coinciding with what is happening outside.
Mm-hmm.
What is happening outside is two major phenomena.
Mm-hmm.
The first is climate control, climate change.
Mm-hmm.
We are underestimating its impacts here.
Yeah.
I like the fact that young people
Are talking about it.
are talking about it. It's a major issue. Okay?
Yeah.
That is changing our world. It is the biggest threat to mankind now and into the future.
That's
COVID. Okay? That brought about a whole new awakening to the way the world views itself, especially the West. Now, I want you to look at both. The greatest thing about both is that its cure is natural.
Mm-hmm.
You deal with climate change by doing away with fossil fuels and going back to green energy, focusing on green energy, right? That green energy is in abundance on this continent. Abundance you cannot believe. I think, in fact, the greatest abundance. And that is the fuel. Yes, 60%. That is now the fuel that will fuel the world, the rest of generations to come. Right? Then you have COVID. COVID, what is the cure of COVID? Oxygen? Are you not given oxygen?
You are.
And vitamin D.
Yeah, and C.
And C.
Yes.
All natural.
Yeah.
Which is again in abundance here. We have our sun.
Mm.
It's in abundance and our fresh fruit.
Mm.
So understand that we have another colonization coming.
Okay.
So we are at a different period.
Mm.
Right? And this time we must get it right. Not only in Kenya, but Africa.
Mm.
We must get it right.
Mm.
Otherwise, what will happen?
Mm.
It will happen as what happened during the time we were colonized here in 1885.
Yeah.
Right? They came for our land and our resources,
Mm.
and they made us their workers and slaves.
And now they'll come for our energy.
And they'll now come for the same thing, our resources.
Yeah.
Right? And make us their workers.
Mm.
Whereas we are the people who must be kings.
That's true.
We must use this to dominate the same world
that dominated
us for far too long.
But the weakest link here is the leadership.
Yes, and that's the biggest link, not only here, but in the continent.
Yeah.
So this is a different period. For example, Raila Amolo Odinga, who I supported in the last election, he is a hero of the second liberation. That will give him. But to transfer to the next liberation, because this is another revolution, he can't.
Yeah.
His father tried to go from one to another, he failed.
Yeah.
He cannot. You can't be a hero of all revolutions.
Of all of them.
Yes, because you don't identify with it.
That's true.
This is an economic one.
Okay.
It is an empowerment one. It needs very different lenses.
Yeah. So I'm assuming this is why.
Let me tell you, we have got the human capital. Young people are the power. They need to be unleashed. And they need to have a very different mentality. They must have a conquest agenda.
Okay.
Not a slave mentality, not a defeatist mentality. A conquest agenda in their minds. This is a time for their power to be unleashed. Removed from all shackles that held them.
Yeah.
Okay?
And I hear you, like with the position that we're at as Africa. But then I think young people are really grappling with this. You see how you talked about the second liberation, where now we are looking at each other. And now we're even looking more at ourselves, I think, with COVID, because it's like, oh my God, I have nothing. I don't know what. How does someone start forming that conquest mentality?
But here,
is this what your candidate is about?
That's what my candidate is about.
Okay.
I am trying to tell, especially the young people, that this is actually their time, and this is the best time that they've ever had an opportunity. Okay. When you say they are looking at COVID and feeling depressed, they are feeling depressed because opportunities were taken away.
That's true.
But opportunities were taken away even long before COVID.
That's true.
By a government that was not thinking about it. Right now, they should see the positive end of this. See, I see a glass half full rather than half empty. How many of our people died in Africa?
Not as many as
the rest of the world. Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. That tells you that there's something special. Because they predicted how many people would die out of COVID in this continent. Correct.
Yeah.
They say we are densely, we are together.
Yeah.
There's no space. We don't have hospitals. We don't have this.
Yeah.
Well, look at what happened.
That's true.
We are walking here.
Yeah.
we've conquered.
Okay.
Without their medicine, without all their things.
Yeah.
So there's something very special about
it. Guys, we have to cut this episode here. This is part 1, but please stay tuned for part 2. It's gonna drop soon. Watch out.